So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for October 11th, 2023. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the things that were tagged for the agenda in issue number 1451. Before we do that, does anybody have any news they'd like to share?
Oh,
Okay.
I
Go ahead.
was speaking mute.
Yep.
Node.js 21 should be released next week, and
That's
3
right.
days after, or 4 days after, we will move Node.js 20 to LTS. So if you are using Node.js 16, it's end of life. So please upgrade to 18 or Node.js 20.
How many days you said? How many days later?
I think it's October 21, the date.
Right. So it'd be a week
check.
later, right?
Oh, possibly, yeah.
Because I think they're both let me just look. I think they're both scheduled for like the Tuesday and then the next Tuesday, but so 21 is scheduled
Yes, 20
for the 17th.
That's correct.
Yeah, and then the 24th, I think, then, right?
Is the LTS? Yes.
Yes,
the
yeah,
LTS.
the 24th. Yeah, okay. No, that was good. Thanks for any other announcements people would like to share? Okay, if not, we'll move on. I don't think we don't have our CPC or board meeting reps, so I'm going to say no updates this week. So we can move on to the issues. The first issue being proposal to detect ESM syntax in every ambiguous file. So I think, Jeffrey, you might have added that to the agenda.
Yeah, there's nothing really. Well, I mean, if people have current concerns, but unless people have any concerns, there's nothing really to discuss. It was more that if this lands, then so I was trying to figure out some way to, based on the work we've already done, I was trying to figure out some way to get to like ESM syntax enabled by default in Node that's not years away. And so the first prospect of just flipping the new default type flag seemed to be too much to do so soon. So then we did another version of it. Well, if it's not default type module, it could be default type detect or default type detect module. But then I got several people from the loaders and old modules teams reached out to me to say, well, if you're going to do detection at all, don't do it on just the entry point, do it on every file, assuming that we can do that without it being, terribly unperformant. So then I opened another proposal for that, and I'm looking into that. That seems to be my instinct is that seems to be the strong preference of several people who are closely involved in this issue. It was very controversial like 4 years ago. It doesn't seem to be controversial anymore somehow. But because of that, I didn't want to like start going down that road. I didn't want to start going down that road if people seem likely to object in principle to it, which it seems like no one has, so that's fine. But B, if it seems like this is our most promising way forward, then for the part for the DSC is that if it seems like this is the direction we're going to go in, I don't think it makes much sense to keep a default type flag around if we have detection for every file. Like you would never, when would you ever set the default type flag, right? It just wouldn't be used. So we'd probably end up removing that thing that we just added once this lands instead. If that's what if we're going to do that, then maybe we shouldn't promote the new default type flag very much in the 21 announcement. Because if we're going to remove it at all, it's better earlier than later. Like, don't let it sit out for 6 months and people start using it and relying on it. Let's wait until the new thing lands, I guess, and then then right after that we could get rid of the other flag. And so it's out there for a minor or two, and then it's gone. And so just wanted to
Yeah,
throw
it
all that
almost-
out there and get feedback, because before I put a lot of time effort into this and other people put a lot of effort into this, you know, the sooner we get concerns, the better. That's all.
So I agree with you, like in the announcement, we may even want to say, oh, and you know, we think we found a better path forward, so we're likely to just remove this. You can use it in the interim.
I don't know if we want to go that far because like there's a good chance that the detection on every file doesn't land if it's too much of a performance hit. Like that's the big unknown.
Right, okay.
So
So
I
there's
would
still a
I
risk.
wouldn't want
Right.
people to think like we're certain that this is the way we're gonna go. Like, you know, like I know we can make it work from a technical perspective, but can we make it work in a way that's acceptable as a performance hit is a big unknown. So if that doesn't work, then I think there's a good chance that the other detection proposal where it's just the entry point is almost certain. Well, I mean, we don't really care about the performance impact of analyzing just one file. So like that one is like pretty certain. Like we could say that like that can work, but it builds on the default type flag. So it's sort of like if the other one if the detect every file thing lands, then there's no point in pursuing the first one. So
Okay, so it sounds like maybe it's just what you're saying now is like, we should just mention it. We shouldn't really say anything one way or the other. Just it's available. You can set it if you want to use it.
yeah, like maybe what
Right.
what he already, I think it was Raphael already had in the like it was one of the bullet points in the notable changes at the top of the 21 announcement. That's it.
Right.
We don't need to say anything more about it, that it's going to become the
Yeah.
default in the future, blah, blah, blah. Like we can just
Yep.
table that whole discussion, and hopefully what seems like the most promising option right now will work out for us. And then we can land that whenever. I mean, it's a December minor change. So,
Right.
you know, I would hope that like maybe we can get it stable during the lifetime of 21 and it can be enabled by default in 22. And then that could be like, then we really can promote it as a big, look, we've got a
Sure.
shiny new feature that everyone's going to be happy with. And that can be part of
Right.
the release announcements for 22. And we'll feel confident about it because we've had all of 21 like testing it out.
Just
in
one thing.
experimental mode.
Yeah. If we are targeting to, I don't know, just as a simulation, to have it on 22 without flags, would be great to at least on the blog post to get feedbacks, or to say to explicitly say what's the discussion, what we are targeting for Node.js 22, so people can test it on 21, and then we can finally make it.
I'm talking about the new PR, the one that hasn't landed yet.
Okay,
The
right.
detection on every file. Right. That was where this was all going from. Like why I was bringing this up to the TSC so many times in the past few weeks was like, for when I thought that the best option we had was the new default type flag, I was going to push to be like, hey, let's really push this in the announcement so that people get using it, and so that we can hopefully, you know, flip the default for it as soon as possible. But
okay, but
you know, but if it seems like we're
doesn't
moving
mean
away
we
from
can't
that,
mention
then,
it.
yeah.
It doesn't mean we can mention it. Regardless if we have that pull request included to Node.js 21. We have one, which is the flag that experimental input type or something like that, right?
Default type, yeah.
Yes, this one. We can mention in that specific notable change that we are discussing another approach and link to that pull request, so we can collect more feedback, regardless if that gets landed or not.
Sure. Why don't we just say like we're considering using detection of ESM syntax.
Sure.
For allowing this behavior by default without needing to opt in. And then we can link to the two proposals, say, because we don't know. I mean, I feel pretty confident one or the other should land. The detect every file, I'm, you know, maybe 70%.
Yeah, if we just say that we are considering it,
the
it doesn't
detect
mean
entry
it will land.
point, I feel like 95% confident. So we could mention that we're looking into detection, and then it's like that does give people a hint of like,
Mhm.
the direction we're going.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so basically, I'm just noting down, Raphael's, your suggestion is that we note that we're considering automatic detection as an alternative to this flag, right?
Yeah, we mention it right right below the notable change
Right,
related to the ESM.
right. So basically, that sounds reasonable to me, right? Like it's basically like, hey, here's a new flag, but heads up, we're considering this alternative. We'll see how it
Exactly.
works out, but that. So I think if you put that into the change notes and people can review it there, but that doesn't sound terribly controversial to me, right?
Yeah, I'm considering to put it in the blog post that
Well, I meant
I'm
the blog
writing.
post. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Okay,
then we
so
can
blog post,
expand
but
it
not
more.
necessarily. Yeah. Okay.
Matteo just joined.
Okay. I am.
Yeah, if you want to ping me on Slack, Raphael, when you start writing that, the sentence or two where you mentioned that, I'm happy to work on that with you.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, I will need to stop to work on Node.js 21 for a bit, just because of the upcoming release. But yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, so anything more we should chat about on that? If not, we can move on to the nvar node v8 coverage intermittently causes test runner to hang. I did look, there's some discussion in the issue that maybe it's not news in V20, so it might not make sense to call it out specifically in the release blog post. That was what we were discussing last time. I don't know what everybody thinks on that front.
It's for my test, it's significantly not a problem on node 18, but it's a
Okay.
massive problem on node 20. Like it's I cannot get my platformatic CI to do test coverage at all with node 20. So like it's from my point of view, it's the recommendation stands on
Right. Okay.
be careful with nodes with node v20, but it's I am happy to not call it out, but we might be having my main concern here is if we don't and people start reporting and nothing works on node 20, it's really bad marketing. Okay,
I'm happy with calling it out. Like if we like, even if it's not new, if it's much more like if it happens 1 out of every 100 times earlier and now it happens 95 out of 100, in that my mind, that's still worth calling out. So I'm still comfortable calling out. We agreed we would do that last time. So unless anybody else objects or like unless somebody else is saying no, absolutely we shouldn't, that still makes sense to me. And I guess Raphael, you're helping to put that together. So as long as you're happy including it, haven't heard
Yeah,
from
sure.
anybody to, then
You're talking about like
sorry.
I was just gonna say, you're talking about like the blog post announcing 20 going to LTS, calling it out there.
yes.
Are we
Yes,
gonna,
we
is
are
there like a
doing it
section of
already.
that? Is there a section of that blog post that's like known issues? And so this would go in there, or is this the only known
we
issue?
Yeah,
We
don't
haven't
do
had a
it
known
usually.
issues in the past, but I think that's reasonable.
it's a commitment,
Okay.
as he said, it's a commitment to fix it. Okay, this exists. We are committing to fixing it as much as possible.
Just to stay in the same line, this is about the D8 issue, right?
Yep.
Okay. Right, I can include that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Colin, had you get any chance to look it further?
I spent a couple of hours on it last week, but I kind of feel like I'm just spinning my wheels at this point. Everything that I've been able to see is just like this infinite loop between Node trying to empty all of the messages that it has, and then V8 trying to clean up finalization registries and creating more.
That sounds fun.
But
Okay,
I think it's sort of like, our path, it's the same. I think actually like, known issues is a typical thing in a release announcement. So I think just adding that in as a placeholder, even when we have none, wouldn't be necessarily a terrible thing.
what is the best place to do that? Changelog or the blog post? Changelog, right?
I mean,
Blog post?
both.
I'd almost say both, to be honest.
Yeah, both.
Okay. Sure.
You know, include in both change log and blog post. Okay. Okay, anything more we should chat about on that one?
It will be cool if somebody else with a lot of V8 who could take a look, because
Yeah.
it's quite a big bummer, because there is no alternative to that for if you're using if you have an ESN code base. So it's quite a
I mean,
big,
forgive me if this is a little bit off topic, but like, I remember seeing that PR about fixing NYC. And like, how does code coverage work for CommonJS? Like, there's something about fixing NYC related to monkey patching the CommonJS loader. And so I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, how does code coverage work for CommonJS? Because
so in NYC transpiled everything.
well, let's just say they're trying to do code coverage for CommonJS that's written in CommonJS. Like, how do they know? Like,
It transpiles, so it runs a transpiled version of the code with all the lines with counters in all lines, essentially. So it doubles the size of the code. It just add counters everywhere.
okay. I mean, now
And-
that we have the module customization hooks, couldn't the same be done for ESM code?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Well, it's the same approach, yes, but it's in theory is very unreliable. Okay, because it modifies the code, and in theory, using the V1 provided by V8 is significantly better. Okay. But
Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't fix this bug. I'm just wondering if like,
As a workaround.
if there's another solution, you know, a
I have
different
no
solution.
clue. I have no clue at this point. So we might be okay to ping Benjamin Cole, which is the person that did the original thing, and try to get him to ask him what he thinks, and if it's something that, I don't know, maybe it can be fixed in C8, or we need to do something on top to mitigate it somehow. Like if a few people said that they were able to get away with it by adding some take and no, it's not fixing the code coverage problem. It's avoiding that damn recursion.
I guess we haven't had any success in getting somebody from the V8 team to help out yet.
We will need to get escalation point after. I think it's at this point it's pretty much question mark on that. So
I did ping the Node.js V8 team on the issue, and I don't think anybody has said anything except for Joy.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any. I haven't seen or spoken to anybody directly from that team for a while. I don't know if anybody knows somebody they could reach out more versus just a GitHub ping.
given that this is a little bit inspector related, might be something to give a ping to the inspector, to our friend on Chrome DevTools. So, and try to see if they can have some contacts internally. Them.
Right, because there is an issue somewhere, right, where they were asking for feedback. Is that?
Yeah, there were some asking some feedback at some point, so maybe we could ask them and
Yeah.
and see. Look, we have this issue with V8. And yeah,
That sounds like a good idea. It's like somebody who's been engaged recently, and so maybe if not them, they could at least find us the right
do an
person.
intro and say, look,
Yeah.
it's there is a bad recursion here, so it's like it seems that the best course on action might be a patch on V8 at this point to break that recursion or something, but I don't have a clue.
Okay, anything more we should
Um,
chat about that one? Sorry, go ahead.
Just one thing, have you tested in the latest, because we have included a bunch of V8 updates for Node.js 21, does that might fix somehow? If you check out on Node.js 21 proposal, you might be able to check it.
I haven't tested again since the V8 upgrade landed.
Mhm.
But it's a good thing to try. I'm not optimistic, but it's a good thing to try.
It
Okay.
would be good to know that it's still there versus we go out and announce it and it's like, oh, accidentally it got fixed, right?
Yeah, but
Well,
well,
it's
if
not
that got
fixed in
fixed, then it's
20.
easy to check.
It's
No,
not
no,
fixed
in
20.
21.
Yeah, it's in 21, yeah. But it's not like the LTS release, we won't be able to patch it anyway before it goes LTS.
Right, but we were talking about calling it out in the 21 release, I think.
Oh, I don't think
And
we should.
then we
Like, I
can-
think we should call it on the 20 LTS, not the 21.
Okay, I see. So just in the 20 LTS. Okay,
For the 21, it's not going to be massively adopted. I'm more concerned on
Right.
the 20 being massively adopted. So that people would say, oh, now it's the time to upgrade my project. Whoops,
yeah, okay.
tests do not finish. What the freaking problem here?
Okay, yeah, sorry, no, that's right. Change log. Okay, so sorry, Raphael, what was your question there again?
No, I
Your
was just
suggestion, right,
suggesting
Raphael? Yeah.
to
Suggestion.
check if the error still happens on Node.js 21. If that fixes, it's way easier to find the problem,
Right, it would at least narrow
I
it
guess.
down.
Well, if it
Yeah.
fixes it, we will have a commit to backport,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, no, it's a good suggestion. Anything else on that one we should discuss? Okay, the next two, I just removed the TSC agenda, so the collaborator changes more privacy. There were some suggestions. Benjamin walked us through them yesterday. I think there was no concerns, so I removed it from the agendas discussed last week. Similarly, have a mascot. I think that was mostly on as an FYI. There's been a proposal that's been sent and shared, and nobody showed any concerns. So I think that's moving forward. The foundation staff are moving forward with the proposal to get that started. And again, I just removed it from the agenda because I don't think there's anything more to chat about unless anybody here has something they want to add. Okay, that takes us to the next issue, which is create Node.js socket repository for Node.js implementation in Cloudflare socket API. I could see the last comment in that one. Tobias was, kind of saying, if we're sure it's going to be the socket API, then maybe, but otherwise it's maybe a little bit early. So I don't know what other people are thinking there. I mean, I think Cloudflare has released, was it Cloudflare? I mean, Cloudflare did a big press release that they, have this new module that you can pull in. But I'm not sure it belongs in the Node project yet. I don't know if other people think we should be pulling it in or. I don't think it, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, seems a little premature.
I don't know, I think I agree as well. Does anybody else have any? I'm not sure it needs to be like, it's not, it's just an external module that can be pulled in, I think, right?
My
I guess
understanding,
So go ahead.
my understanding is it's just an NPM module.
Okay.
And the ask was just to publish it under the Node.js scope.
I guess the question maybe, like, I know we talked earlier about having multiple level APIs. I don't know if maybe those were HTTP APIs versus socket APIs. When we talked about, when we pulled in fetch, we also had the idea that we'd have a lower level API based on Indici. So I don't know, Matteo, if you think this overlaps or is something completely different.
I have not had enough time to get it to analyze further. So I also, to be honest, I would be very concerned in adding new APIs before they are proven to be performant at this point. Like a lot of those web APIs, we have not have a good track record implementing them with a good performance. So so unless it's proven otherwise, I think it's probably too old off. But
Okay.
having it released as a module, I have no problem with it. Okay, so it's yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like I'm hearing the feeling is to hold off for now. For the small number of us who are here is, I'll just say, like, feeling a smallish number of people we had in the PSC meeting today. It's people. So I just said, feeling small, the smallest number of people we had in this meeting today, 6, was that it's premature to pull into the Node.js repo at this point. Does everybody think that's fair, comfortable with that?
I haven't been following this particular issue, so sure.
Okay. Okay. So I'll say commented an issue. Okay, so that then takes us down to the strategic initiative side of things. I will just pop that open. And I'm going to go back to the issue because sometimes people post updates there just to make sure I haven't missed anything there. If I can get my mouse to work properly. Come on. Okay, let's go back. Don't see any there, and I'm just going to go then look in terms of node doc meeting. Yeah, I think the only person we have who could give an update is the next 10. So the one thing I think that's worth mentioning is we were talking about the next deep dives today. And I think what we kind of came to the conclusion is that, we've gone through the technical side and we've done deep dives there, and the technical priorities and are pretty well defined. We've reviewed them in our collaborator summits, which we should continue to do, but there hasn't been a lot of like massive change. Our survey also kind of confirmed that what we've got on those lists seems sensible. So that kind of almost seems more of a maintenance kind of thing now. And so we were thinking actually we might focus on some of the things more around like how you maintain and grow the project itself as opposed to the technical side of things. And one being possibly trying to come up with a list of things that the project would like from the foundation. You know, what kind of asks do we have around, say, conferences, collaborator summits, that kind of stuff. As well as, you know, so doing a deep dive on that, and then separately also possibly looking at, you know, how do we get more corporate support and involvement and getting people, and, you know, the idea there is actually to maybe go to some of the existing members and try and, you know, have the discussion that says, what's the value to you, you know, and to understand what's blocking. We have a few people like in X10 who've been like, hey, we're from companies and here's some of our challenges, but trying to get that, like getting a broader view on what are the challenges people have inside convincing their companies to actually support the project and foundation. So that's just sort of the latest discussion, and probably where we'll spin up some deep dives going forward. Any questions on that?
Something that I would be interested in maybe getting some help from the foundation is more surveys and more frequent surveys. Like we were talking a lot about like when we were talking about the default type stuff. I'm kind of like trying to tease out what I think most users want based on the April 2023 survey, which had a lot of data. So there was definitely stuff to work with there. But being able to just like ask hundreds or 1,000 users a specific question, like, how do you feel about this approach or whatever? It'd be nice if we had like a way of doing that, because like when I read the list of complaints, I would say it felt like they were overwhelmingly UX complaints, you know, like, you know, something like a third or more were related to ESM and or TypeScript. And then the rest were, I would say like debugging was maybe the number 2, which I feel like is not something we really even talk about much. Like, I don't know if that's even more on the list of technical priorities.
The diagnostics working group does talk about that, although we don't have as much activity as we once did. And so I think
the third one was performance, which I guess is not really UX, or you could argue if it's UX or not. But yeah, I don't know. It just struck me as interesting. Is like that's the. I mean, I guess maybe it makes sense that the user complaints are for areas in which we have the least focus, because if we were focusing on those areas, then the users wouldn't be complaining about them. But I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's some way to improve our process to, like, you know, improve development in those directions, especially for UX things where it's like, maybe it's just more about, I don't know, better flags, better error messages, better docs, better guides, like all those things that are like low-hanging fruit that are easy to implement. Like we're already doing that a little bit of, like, if someone tries to run a TypeScript file in Node, let's at least give them a specific to TypeScript error message that tells them how to solve their problem. You know, like it's like so easy to do, you know, things like that.
I think like definitely having on the list, like, you know, hey, we would like to have, you know, 3 surveys, 4 surveys a year, like, and having that pre-agreed would be helpful, as opposed to the, hey, we want to do a survey. So that's good to have on the list. I think it's specifically like, if you have in mind a survey that you think we should do, we should just ask. You know, that one, the next 10 just said, hey, we want to do a survey. I think if we ask for a survey every month, we might get some pushback, but like, you know, doing another one at this point, I expect the answer would just be sure, right? You know, we never know until we ask, though, right? So
I mean, and also maybe like kind of formalize the process, like rather than having it be spit out in a giant PDF, you know, like it could be a Google form and then it's in a spreadsheet for us to slice and dice the data.
Well, that's
afterwards,
exactly
you know?
how it came. But like, I spent a bunch of time stripping out stuff which you couldn't land in our GitHub repos. Right? Like, you know, some people's comments are identifying not necessarily of themselves, but of like other people. And so I think it, we're always going to have to do a little bit of sanitization before you can, and the spreadsheet was huge. So like, and people typed in none in like 100 lines. So I deleted
Anyway,
those.
yeah, we can
But yeah.
get
Yeah.
into the details of how to improve the actual process for when we do these. But
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, since UX seems to be a primary, like one of the biggest complaints, I guess. Well, the way to improve that is to get better user feedback. So that was all I was
Yeah.
trying to get at.
No, definitely. I mean, we've tried to get user feedback. Like we had a user feedback working group at one point, but I still don't think we've sort of cracked the how do we get a good feedback loop going there yet. But the last survey, I think, like you said, was really interesting. So doing more of those, and so I guess to say, if you have one now that you'd say, like, let's ask these questions, let's just put the list of questions together and ask if we can do it. But yeah, I noted that down in the minutes that that's a good one. So, we'll actually go ahead.
And you were saying, like, what could we ask from corporate help?
Yeah.
I just remember Yagi's having trouble debugging a Windows issue. It feels like this must be something that one of the companies who supports Node could be like, here are some Windows machines you can remote into that can, build and run Node, like for when we have collaborators who just can't debug an issue themselves that's specific to a platform that they're not developing on. I mean, yeah, it costs a little money, but like in the scheme of Red Hat or IBM or so on, like having a single, or 2 or 3 Windows machines feels like something they can certainly afford.
Regarding this issue, I wanted to ask you something. So as an example, this pull request that I've been working on, I tagged and asked for feedback or help from the Windows team and it's been open for more than 2 weeks, and I still didn't receive any response from anyone at all. And Windows is a supported platform. It's like tier 1, if I'm not mistaken. So what's the procedure on this particular case?
We don't have, I mean, Microsoft supports some people to participate in the project, but that doesn't mean they chime in on all these issues. The only thing I can think of doing is mentioning the people who we know are those people who are supported.
I tried to reach out to all of the Windows folks that I can think of, and I received 0 response. And it's a huge PR that improves the performance of the error paths for almost all file system operations, and it's open for more than 2 weeks. And it's demotivating.
I mean, this is the other thing that companies could help us. I mean, this is a little bit more of an investment than spending money on a Windows VM, but like having people with C++ expertise and V8 expertise and so on, like kind of on call for code reviews and things like that, and bug reports and security. Like
maybe I should have been a little clearer. We're not at lack of ideas of how companies could help. It's more about like, how do we actually get them to do it? Like, what's preventing them from
consider dropping platforms that we don't get support for. Might be a.
But it's impossible to drop Windows, for instance.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that would be a warning sign for them, all other companies, because we're not receiving any response at all. And if we don't,
yeah, but that's not like a realistic stick to like, hey, Microsoft, support us, or else we're going to drop Windows. I don't think they would believe that.
I'm going to give you some news. In theory, Microsoft is convinced of supporting us, and there is a little bit of a situation there. So I don't want to enter in details in the public section, but
yeah, maybe we were talking about keeping some time for the private section. So why don't I would propose at this point we flip over to the private section, and we can talk about the the topics that we have there. So anything else we should talk about in the public section before we move on?
Nope.
If not,